Ambassador Zexthol's crystalline appendages trembled as he reviewed the intelligence reports for the third time. The Korthak Empire had done the unthinkable. They had attacked a human colony. Fools, he whispered in his native tongue, the sound like grinding glass. As the senior ambassador of the Galactic Confederation, Zexthol had spent the better part of 3 centuries studying the younger species that had joined their cosmic community. But none had fascinated and terrified him quite like the humans. The warning had been etched into every diplomatic manual, carved into the walls of the Confederation's most sacred halls, and whispered in hushed tones across 1,000 worlds, "Do not trifle with humans." It wasn't their technology that made them dangerous, though their rapid advancement was remarkable. It wasn't their physical prowess, though they were surprisingly resilient for such a young species. No, what made humans truly terrifying was something far more primal: their capacity for righteous fury when those they loved were threatened. The Korthak, in their arrogance, had dismissed these warnings as the superstitious ramblings of inferior species. They were apex predators from a high-gravity world, their carapaced bodies designed for warfare, their culture built on conquest. They had crushed dozens of civilizations across the Outer Rim, and humanity's recent expansion into that sector had been seen as nothing more than another opportunity for easy prey. They were wrong. Zexthol's communication device chimed with an urgent message from the Confederation High Command. The text made his bioluminescent patches flicker with anxiety. Human fleet movements detected. Destination, Korthak Prime. Estimated arrival 72 standard hours. The attack on New Eden had been swift and brutal. The Korthak had descended upon the agricultural colony like a plague, their intent clear: complete subjugation and enslavement of the population. What they hadn't counted on was the colony's desperate distress signal reaching Earth before communications were severed. Earth's response had been immediate and unprecedented. Every human fleet, from military vessels to hastily converted civilian craft, had begun moving toward Korthak space. The usually fractious human governments had unified with a speed that amazed even their allies. Democrats and autocrats, capitalists and communists, religious zealots and secular scientists, all had spoken with one voice: bring them home. But it was too late for New Eden. By the time the first human scouts reached the system, they found only ash and ruins. 15,000 civilians, men, women, children, had been executed when they refused to submit. The Korthak had broadcast the massacre across the sector as a warning to other lesser species. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, her dark eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the Korthak home system. Around her, the largest human armada ever assembled waited in formation. Over 3,000 ships representing every nation, corporation, and independent faction that humanity had ever known. "Ma'am," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Korthak High Command. They're offering to negotiate." Chen's expression didn't change. "Did they negotiate with the children of New Eden?" "No, ma'am." "Then we have nothing to discuss." She turned to her tactical officer. "Signal the fleet. Operation Thunderstorm is a go." What followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for millennia to come. The humans didn't simply attack. They systematically dismantled the Korthak Empire with surgical precision. Every military installation, every shipyard, every government facility was reduced to scrap metal and vapor. But not a single civilian target was touched. When Korthak fighters tried to use their own colonies as shields, human pilots performed impossible maneuvers to avoid civilian casualties, even at the cost of their own lives. When enemy commanders attempted to negotiate using hostages, human special forces materialized from nowhere to extract every single captive before resuming their inexorable advance. The Korthak High Command, sealed in their supposedly impregnable fortress world, watched in growing horror as their empire crumbled around them. They had fought wars for conquest, for resources, for the simple joy of domination, but they had never faced an enemy that fought for something more powerful than any weapon: love. By the time human marines breached the throne room, the Korthak Emperor was alone, his generals having either fled or taken their own lives rather than face capture. Admiral Chen herself led the final assault, her combat armor scarred from the battles that had brought her this far. "You cannot destroy us," the Emperor rasped, his mandibles clicking in fear. "We are the apex species. We have conquered hundreds of worlds." Chen removed her helmet, revealing a face marked by exhaustion but burning with unquenchable determination. "You made one mistake," she said quietly. "You hurt our children." The war crimes tribunal that followed was swift but fair. The Korthak leadership faced justice for their atrocities, while their people were offered a path to redemption. Remarkably, many Korthak civilians chose to serve in human reconstruction efforts, amazed by the species that had defeated their empire but refused to enslave them in return. Ambassador Zexthal watched the proceedings from the diplomatic gallery, his crystalline form reflecting the lights of the courtroom. Around him, representatives from across the galaxy bore witness to humanity's victory and their mercy. Later, as he compiled his final report on the incident, Zexthal paused at his conclusion. After careful consideration, he wrote, "The Korthak War serves as a definitive reminder that the oldest rule in the galaxy exists for good reason. Humans are not the strongest species, nor the most technologically advanced, but they are the only species that becomes more dangerous the more you threaten those they love. Do not trifle with humans, not because you fear their weapons, but because you should fear their hearts." In the years that followed, as new species joined the Galactic Confederation, they would all learn the same lesson that countless civilizations had learned before them. There were many dangerous things in the vast cosmos: black holes, gamma-ray bursts, rogue artificial intelligences, but none were more dangerous than a human who had nothing left to lose and everything to protect. The universe had been reminded, love was the most powerful force in the galaxy, and humans wielded it like a weapon of mass destruction.